Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists episode 586. My name is Kyle.
And my name is James.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and the movie obsession for the next hour or so. How's it going, James?
Pretty good.
Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday evening in the middle of the week.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, we're doing a little bit. People probably won't hear this unless they're a Patreon listener until 4 or 5 days from now. But
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, we're doing a little catch-up episode this week because we saw a movie that we kind of need to talk about, but we weren't going to be able to this weekend. So it was like, well, since Zach's not going to be able to make the podcast next weekend, then let's just jump on a Tuesday night and get it all out. So here we are.
This is the movie that I wanted to discuss while we were discussing Little Mermaid.
Was it killing you inside to have to talk about Little Mermaid?
A little bit, just because I'd seen this movie the day before we recorded the Little Mermaid episode. And I'd seen Little Mermaid like a week before that. So like Little Mermaid was already pushed out of my head. This new movie that I liked way better was in there. And I was like, to talk about Little Mermaid for next hour or so instead of this movie that I really want to discuss.
Sure. Yeah, especially since they're kind of similar in weird ways. Like,
okay.
Later on, we're going to do a list of our top 10 Spider-Man movies.
That's true.
The main movie that we're going to talk about this week is the 10th version of Spider-Man. And we'll get into it, but how is the 10th version of Spider-Man this movie? You know what I mean? Whereas
25 years, like we've only had 25 years. It's not like, we're talking Batman, which has been going on since the 60s and before. Like Spider-Man movies only in the 21st century.
Right. And a lot of the criticism that you and I had for Little Mermaid is like, if you're not going to do something different,
right?
Why are you doing it?
Whereas,
and this movie is like the perfect example of doing something different.
Yeah, like let's take something that everyone knows,
right,
and let's put a new spin on it.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, we're gonna talk Spider-Man : Across the Spider-Universe. Spider-Verse.
Is it a dash verse or is it just Spider-Verse?
I think there's a dash.
Ooh.
Double check.
Yeah, okay.
Wikipedia has a dash, but I don't know if that's
I don't
official.
trust Wikipedia. That's just done by the layman.
Wikipedians.
Yes. Okay, across the...
I think there's a dash.
Oh, there is a dash. Spider-Man : Across the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
Well, if IMDb says it's true, then let it be written.
Why do you trust IMDb over Wikipedia? They're both a database populated by users.
One of it is loyalty.
Okay.
Just because I had this memory in like the late 90s of going to a Hollywood Video to rent a VHS.
Uh-huh.
And the nerdy movie clerk behind the desk was like, "Are you familiar with the Internet Movie Database?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Go to Lycos and put in the Internet Movie Database."
Go to Lycos.
Yes. Or Dogpile or whatever right. Search engine I was using in the late 90s.
Alta Vista.
Alta Vista, that could be in the big one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been using IMDb as long as I've been using the internet.
Sure.
And it's changed a lot and it's changed for the worse, but habits are hard to break.
Yeah. I used to use it all the time too, and then I just like the narrative nature of Wikipedia much better than the kind of bite-sized information style of IMDb.
That's very Web 2.0 of you.
Is it?
Or maybe the other way around. I don't know.
IMDb definitely came before Wikipedia, but they're both,
sure, yeah.
But they're both very early internet sites for sure.
What was Wikipedia?
Neither of those are like trendy websites.
Did Wikipedia exist in the 20th century, or is that a 21st century invention?
I believe it was like 2001-ish.
So it's okay. All right.
But I'm not sure about that.
I'm not 100% sure either. I feel like it came out in the 21st century.
All right. How about when was Wikipedia? January 15th, 2001.
Okay. So like, okay, no, a year out. Well, we all know that the year 2000 is technically the 20th century.
We all know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So 15 days into the 21st century, Wikipedia came out.
Right. How about when was IMDb? When do you think IMDb was?
I'm going to say.
Holy crap.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 95, 96, but now I feel like it's 93.
1990.
90. What?
Yep.
Did it exist? It must have existed on some like university server way back then.
October 17, 1990.
Was it part of DARPA?
Posted his movie listing software to a Usenet film discussion group.
Okay. Wow. 90. Do you remember?
So the Internet Movie Database used to just be software.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I don't know when that date is, but at some point they took that software and made it a website.
Okay.
That anybody could contribute to.
90. That's cool. When did it become a website then? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I bet I could find out by looking at Wikipedia.
Well, yes, because the Internet Movie IMDb is not going to have a history of itself. That's not the purpose. I mean, sure, maybe there's an about section somewhere you can dig around with.
Yep.
But
1993, moved to the World Wide Web. That's what you thought.
93. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Well, I like using technology that is 10 years younger than me or later. I don't know what that means. So
here's a question. When did it get bought by Amazon?
That was in the last, I want to say like 5 years ago, but the pandemic has warped my sense of time. So I want to say 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere in that range.
It has really warped your sense of time because Amazon bought IMDb in 1998.
98?
Yep. They've owned it that long. They kind of left it alone for a good deal of time. And then at some point they really hit the gas on like around the time Prime became a thing was when they were like, oh, we own IMDb. We'll shove ads all over it for Amazon.
Maybe that's why I thought Amazon bought it 10 years ago, because 10 years ago is when the decline started to happen with IMDb.
Right.
Yep. Okay. 98.
For sure.
Some like small little upstart online bookseller wanted to buy a Internet Movie Database.
Well, I think it was around the time they started selling, like they started with books.
Yeah.
And then they added DVDs because DVDs in 98 were like just becoming a thing. And
right.
They're like, oh, this is like shipping a book. So we could do this very easily. So the first things they expanded to were it was like CDs and DVDs. And then they did that for, I mean, a couple of years before they started adding everything under the sun.
Yeah.
But cool.
Do you remember the early DVD service? This is pre-Netflix DVD, where, and I don't even know how these DVDs were coded, but like you would essentially buy the DVD player from this online service.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have to check out DVDs from their library because only their DVDs would play on the player.
Yeah, and the DVDs went bad.
Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, DivX.
DivX, that's what it was called. Yeah. Okay.
DIVX, and it would the DVDs would only last like 2 weeks, and then they would degrade.
Correct. Yep.
So it was like a rental that you threw away.
It was disposable DVDs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We had neighbors had that. Like the first person in our neighborhood to get a DVD player had DivX.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like go over to their house and they like got, I don't know, Dark City or Blade Runner or whatever, whatever cool movie they got on DVD and
right.
would watch
so
it there.
Real early days of like pirating movies on the internet.
Okay.
The hacker community figured out like a better algorithm for encoding movies that would take them from DVD to like a 500 megabyte file, which was in those days like would take you like half a day to transfer, but compared to like a full image of a DVD, it was tiny. And they named that encoding DivX.
DivX, yep.
Just because they hated the idea of that DivX machine. And to this day, if you look up DivX, there's far more information on the encoding.
The encoder than
the encoder than there is the company that rented disposable DVDs.
I remember downloading the DivX encoder in like college to watch videos and things like that. Yeah, that was a big one. Cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, that was a fun little jog down memory lane. Thanks for that, Kyle.
I feel like as we age, it's gonna be just more and more of that.
Oh, for sure.
Like, hey, do you remember?
For sure. All right, let's jump into what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to, of course, talk about Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. We're also going to run down our top 10 Spider-Man movies.
There's only 10, so it's
the
10 Spider-Man movies.
Well, unless you count the Venom movies.
There's no is Spider-Man in the Venom movies?
He's mentioned.
Okay. Well, I mean, I did not include Avengers or like I only included Spider-Man movies.
I only included movies with the word Spider-Man in it.
Correct.
Yeah, same here.
Cool.
Yeah, before we jump into all of that, though, we need to remind people there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Cinereelists. Find us there and subscribe, and you can watch while you listen. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support us there, get extra after show audio amongst other Cinerealist swag. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review. We'd appreciate that. Or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things. We love getting via email because we like discussing it on the podcast. So send away. All right. You ready to jump into Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse? Spider-Verse?
Oh, yes. Across the Spider-Verse. I'm ready for that one.
All right. Perfect. Me too. But first, we must listen to a clip.
Okay. Miles's grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics.
That's my little man.
And AP Studio Art.
He takes after his uncle.
A- in English.
She's a tough grader.
And a B in Spanish.
What?
Woo, okay.
Miles.
Are you trying to
Mira,
kill
eso
your
es
mother?
imposible.
Cálmate, mami. Eso no es my fault.
¿Qué es eso que esto no es my fault? Tú estás tomando una clase en Spanglish.
Mom, I just missed a few classes.
Oh, just a few classes. Well, what's a few?
I mean, you know, like 5?
5?
Actually 6.
You're dead.
That was Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse, a 2023 American computer animated superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Miles Morales / Spider-Man. This movie has 3 directors on it: Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. The movie was written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and David Callahan, and features the voices of Shameik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Brian Tyree Henry, Luna Lauren Velez, Jake Johnson, Jason Schwartzman, Issa Rae, Karan Sani, Shea Wiggum, Greta Lee, Daniel Kaluuya, Mahershala Ali, and Oscar Isaac, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse is: Miles Morales catapults across the multiverse, where he encounters a team of Spider-people charged with protecting its very existence. When the heroes clash on how to handle a new threat, Miles must redefine what it means to be a hero.
That's a pretty fair assessment of the movie.
Sure. I mean, it's got some flowery language in there.
Must redefine what it means to be a hero. Yes.
Right. For sure. I'm not sure that's what the movie is really getting at. Did you get that was like a big thesis of the movie?
But I mean, we can get into a little bit, but there's definitely themes of what it means to be a Spider-Man
Right.
And
What are the characteristics of the Spider-Man, and do
correct.
you fit that? Yeah.
And like the trauma and the loneliness that surrounds being that person in this multiverse. Yeah.
I agree. Okay. I think we should probably do this in 2 parts.
Okay.
Like a spoiler free and a spoiler full for sure.
Let's do a short spoiler free,
No problem.
just to
Let's
kind of
do that.
high level it, and then we can jump into more specific spoilers and things.
Right. You always go first, so I will this time.
Oh no, James, you go first.
Okay, perfect. I love this movie. I thought it was great. I know you're gonna say the same thing.
Oh,
I mean, I think this movie, yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier about how this movie, I can't help but compare it to Little Mermaid because there was just so much talk last week about, especially from you and me, about how if you're going to redo something or you're going to take a swing at it, then might as well change it. Otherwise, what are we doing here? And these movies, specifically these animated Sony animation Spider-Man movies, are just the definition of doing that right. Or at least doing that the way these right for these movies, for sure. Like the characteristics of Spider-Man are represented, and yet it's not the boring Peter Parker Mary, not that that's boring, but it's not the traditional Peter Parker Mary Jane story.
the kind of overtreaded story that we've gotten a lot of.
Right. Exactly. We've seen it told twice already.
We're kind of getting with Tom Holland as a third time.
Right. A little bit. They're holding back on really going into it too, because they don't want to be boring as well.
Right.
I think. So they're trying to they're trying to keep Spider-Man as young as they can for as long as they can, because yeah.
But we've had 3 different Peter Parkers in the last 20 years.
3 different white Peter Parkers.
Brunette Peter Parkers.
Right, for sure. And Miles Morales is just a different take on this. Now, I will say, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but Miles Morales is like not a character in my realm of comic book knowledge for the most part. Like Spider-Man was always my favorite character. I loved him, and by far I collected the most of Spider-Man when I collected comics. But it's been like many years since I collected comics. So Miles Morales happened way after I stopped collecting or paying
Miles
attention.
Morales was created in 2011.
Right. Way
So
after.
very recent. Yeah.
Right. And I know that there was a resurgence. Like Spider-Man was, never like a dying book, but it just wasn't a big deal anymore. And then Miles Morales kind of revitalized it there for a little while in the comics. I knew that much about him, but didn't understand why people liked that spin on the character. And then when they were going to release Into the Spider-Verse in 2018, I thought it looked interesting, but I was like, it's another Spider-Man thing. Like, we're getting Spider-Man things like crazy these days. Who cares? And then the movie came out and it absolutely blew me away. Not only the fresh take from the main character, but also just the presentation of it all, meaning like the pace that the movie kept on top of the animation style blew me away. Seems to have blown away just about everybody that saw it.
Yeah.
It was a instant 5-star for me. If I had one complaint about that movie, it was that it was a little ADHD for my old brain. Like in 2018, I was just like, I felt like at times the movie was just throwing things at me.
Okay.
Like, cause it just that movie never slows down. It just goes fast and furious all the way through. And I still enjoyed it, still 5 stars, but I was like, wow, that was a lot. And the animation constantly changing. I loved it, but I was like kind of exhausted. My eyeballs were like exhausted and my brain was exhausted at the end of it. Not that it was hard to comprehend. It was just so much, so fast. And then on rewatch, I was like, yep, this is still 5-star. And I liked it even better because my brain could keep up with it better. Then when they announced they were making sequels, because of course they are, I was just kind of like, it can only go down.
Yep.
From here. So as long as it's the same creative team, I'm on board. I'll go see it, but I'm not expecting this to be better than that first experience, because how could it be? And I'm excited to report, at least on my side of the table, that I think this is better than the first.
Oh, better. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And the first was a 5-star movie, so I don't know what that means for this one. This is like
6
a 5.5 or a 6-star
6
movie.
stars.
I don't know. It slows down just enough compared to the original one that it goes at the pace of my brain.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I
You
said,
can keep up with this one a little easier.
yeah, I could keep up with it. Some of the characterizations, I think, as they should be in a second film, are deepened.
Mm-hmm.
The relationships are not new anymore, and so there's an opportunity there to really solidify them. And I really felt that, and they pulled that off. They bring the mother, Miles Morales' mother, into the forefront a lot more now that you don't have the uncle in the picture really anymore.
Right.
And her touch to the movie just really humanizes Miles more than an Aunt May in any of the live action movies have ever done. As like, this is something that you couldn't imagine a high schooler having to like shoulder this type of thing. Like being there when your uncle dies and then having to keep that a secret is like a heavy thing. And
For like a 14-year-old, and especially,
right,
who's also dealing with
exactly.
the fact that he is a superhero.
Absolutely. And that he likes being a superhero, but he can't share it with anybody.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of that's always the second part of the Spider-Man story. Like traditionally, the first one is the origin and learning about how to be Spider-Man, and the second one is about, okay, how do you exist as Spider-Man? Like, how do you live two lives? And I mean, I think for a lot of comic book stories, it is, am I Miles, or am I the human, or am I the superhero? Like, what's my true identity and what is my alter ego?
Yeah. And in this movie, the relationship with Gwen Stacy, or like Miles' interest in Gwen Stacy, I believe is more convincing than any live action movie of Spider-Man we've had yet. And I maybe it's just the fact that she has a power.
That
You know
she's
what I
like
mean? And so they can
equal to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the other movies, she's always just kind of like the distraction, the damsel in distress. You know what I mean? Like a plot element of sorts here and there. Whereas in this movie specifically, leading in from the first movie, they give her a good deal of time, even before the credits, the opening credits. They give Gwen Stacy a decent amount of backstory for a movie that's not called Gwen Stacy. And I really liked that. Yeah, I could go on and on and on, and I'm sure we will, but I want to give you a chance to give your initial thoughts on this movie.
Yeah. Before we move off of Gwen Stacy, I think what makes her so interesting is that since she is also a spider person, a Spider-Man, like what is the plural?
I think spider people.
Okay, since she's also a spider person, this is someone that Miles can actually be his authentic self with. It's not like what's Mary Jane, where he has to hide it, and she's always like, "What's up with you, Peter? You're different," or like this is somewhere he can actually share being a spider person with and being his full self. And I think that's an interesting dynamic to any superhero movie, but especially bring into the Spider-Man universe. I feel like you can just play back everything you said and just put my voice over it. Like,
you agree with all that?
Yeah, I remember seeing that trailer for Into the Spider-Verse, and like this is the same time Tom Holland's coming out. I'm like, really, we're doing another Spider-Man movie? And for whatever reason, the animation, the trailer never jumped out to me.
Me neither.
And I think for a lot of people, because if you look at Into the Spider-Verse, it made like $35 million its first weekend. where this movie made over 100 million. So
Yeah.
it took
It
people,
clearly made some fans between then and now.
right. It took some time. Into the Spider-Verse is definitely a word of mouth movie where people saw and said, hey, this is actually good. Like, you should check this out. And like everyone else, I checked it out. And yeah, it's a 5-star movie for me. It's one of my most recent top 100 movies. I own it on 4K. I've watched it with my son multiple times. He loves it. So I was excited that they were making more. I figured they were, just based on the success and how they kind of wrapped up Into the Spider-Verse. But I thought, can they top this? Or will it be downhill? And they did it again. Like, this is, I don't know if it's better than Into the Spider-Verse, just because that has a special place in my heart. But is it just as good as Into the Spider-Verse? Yeah, I'd say so for sure.
Here's why I think it's better.
Okay.
One, and you might not agree with this, but the brain speed thing.
Please. Yeah. Yeah.
Two,
the pacing of Into and versus this one didn't bother me. In fact, this
it
one
slowed down just enough, I would say.
I would say if I had an issue with this one, and we can get the spoilers, the last 20 minutes felt kind of long. Just because you kind of knew where it was getting to, and I was waiting for it to get to that point, and it felt like they were pushing out where they wanted to be. Or like every time I thought this was it, there's another scene on top of it.
Gotcha.
This is a nitpick. This is not enough to knock off any stars. But I think for me, it felt a little like we were pushing the finish line out at the end.
Gotcha.
Okay.
The other reason why I think this is better is because the art style, which they pioneered in the first one, you can really see it sing in this one.
Yes. Yep.
And on top of just making interesting visual choices, I felt like at times in the movie, not only were they like, how can we make this interesting, but they were like, how can we make this attach itself emotionally to what's going on? Like the opening with Gwen Stacy when she's talking to her dad and like all this stuff is happening and like they're the only clear characters in the foreground and like the background is like watercolors and the background coloring is like shifting based on the emotions of the scene.
Yep.
I was like, this has no right being this artistically perfect.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like this, for like every time I see a Batman animated movie 4K, you know what I mean, on eBay, and I'm like, why do people watch these things? And I'm sure there's something there for you. I don't watch them, so maybe they're great. I just know I'm so happy that my favorite comic book character is getting the royal treatment with these animated movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Essentially, like these are artists who care about this thing that they could very easily, cynically just be dialing it in to get a Spider-Man movie on the screen. And clearly that's not what's happening here. And that to me is amazing. And I think there was a little bit of that in the first one, but I think they're really dialing it in on this one, and I'm hoping there's even more of it in the third.
Oh yeah, so in the first one, we're given other Spider People characters from the universes, and they have their own unique look, but they're existing still within Miles Morales' universe. Whereas Across the Spider-Verse, and this gave me, and I hate to bring it back to it, but I'm going to, this gave me what Doctor Strange wanted to give me, but shied away from. Doctor Strange 2. Okay.
The multiverse.
The multiverse, right?
Yeah.
And I know I said this before, but there's that sequence in Doctor Strange 2 where they fly through like 30 different universes, and it's a second of each, and each one looks super cool. And we end up in flowery New York. That is our alternate dimension, which is, I feel like, a cop-out. And in this movie, this gives you the cool universes that Doctor Strange 2 was promising, where each time they go to a different universe, it is a completely different art style. That art style not just looks cool, but informs the whatever the vibe of that story is. Like you said, that opening 20 minutes with the like impressionistic watercolors, that was so cool. when they went to was it Mumbattan or whatever it was called?
Yeah. Manhattan and Mumbai combined.
And that, I mean, that's how they used the colors, but also colors that you'd associate with that region of the world. I found this very interesting. And so it just gave me, it uses the universes to tell the story and not just look cool. And I thought that was awesome. I find the action in these movies so easy to watch. It's so fluid. Like, even though there's characters flying, I mean, literally flying around, and there's multiple spider people flying around, and I never felt lost at any point. Like, I always knew what was happening and where people were existing on the screen. And it never felt like chaos, even though at some points there's hundreds of spider people on the screen.
Right. And the main bad guy is kind of chaotic.
In his movement or his drawing?
No, in his movement.
Okay, yes.
I mean, even in his drawing, it was like there were times where you could hardly tell where he was coming and where he was going. But I think that was part of the interesting thing about the enemy. I liked in this movie how the enemy began kind of humbly as a joke. And then as you get through the movie, you realize that like his power actually extends far beyond even his own imagination of what it could be type of thing. And the shots where they would kind of like visualize the main bad guy as more of like a cosmic villain was like crazy to me. The art style that they would switch to for that too was just like, wow, this movie's really going for it.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't complicate it. They didn't complicate the villain too much. You know what I mean? They left room for a villain story and also a Miles Morales story filled with a bunch of other Spider-Men. I think the risk with these multiverse movies is that you'll introduce so much that like details won't matter, or you'll be so hung up on the details that there's just too much information to really take in.
Right.
And somehow this movie can have 100 Spider-Man on screen, and me as a audience member can still feel comfortable not knowing who those other 96 Spider-Man are.
But
you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I think that works because the thesis of this movie is what defines Spider-Man. So because we know the Spider-Man story, and because we know specifically Miles Morales' story and Gwen Stacy's story and, Peter B. Parker's story, so we know how those work within this universe, we can then kind of extrapolate that to all the other Spider-Men that we see. So that way, when they react to something, we're not asking ourselves, well, why is that Spider-Man reacting that way? We know, oh, that's because it's the Spider-Man story. So this is how they're going to react to that situation. So the movie does the shorthand for you, where you don't feel like you're questioning, why did this random Spider-Man pop up and do this?
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. I also think they're building on the groundwork of the first movie, where it was kind of like they gave us enough of a variation of the types of Spider-Man that you got the understanding that anything goes.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they gave us characterizations of like noir Spider-Man and pig Spider-Man and anime Spider-Man. And it was kind of like, oh, okay. So each of these is going to have a little backstory, but they're all generally going to be
right.
Spider-Man story.
They all have the same backstory with just different and well, even Miles Morales, his backstory is the same, but still different enough that it's unique to him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think we need to get into this, James.
I think so too.
Okay.
Did you have any complaints about this movie? Or did you walk out and you were like, other than the last 20 minutes? Which you thought?
No. I mean, besides the last 20 minutes, that's a nitpick. And then, I mean, I can spoil this. I was expecting a mid-credits scene. And we don't get a mid-credits scene.
Was there no mid-credits scene? I feel like there was a little bit of a thing.
There was a Miles Morales will return screen.
Maybe that's what it was.
That's what it was. But there was no screen setting up the next movie, which is fine because the ending of this movie sets up the next movie already. So maybe they really didn't need it, but
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's letterbox this. What are you gonna give Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse?
5 stars.
5 stars for me too.
Easy. Yeah. Easy.
We will do a spoiler discussion at the end of the podcast. So if you're listening on a podcast app, you can check the show notes. You can jump to the end right now if you'd like to. If you're watching this on YouTube, just click the link to the spoiler review in the description. All right, let's move on to our list for this week. It's our top 10 Spider-Man movies, which I believe you only have 9.
I only have 9 of the 10 Spider-Man titled movies, but
Because you
I'm okay
still
with
haven't seen Amazing Spider-Man 2.
And my number 10 is Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I'm probably not going to see it because I did not watch it for No Way Home. And I don't really feel a reason or a need
Why are
to see
you refusing to watch one movie out of 10
No.
that would like complete this thing?
It's not to me, I don't feel like I need to complete the Spider-Man movies.
Why not?
And-
You're so close. What is the big deal? Some night where it doesn't matter, just pop it on. Finish
Because
it off.
I have 300 other movies I want to watch.
You don't occasionally pop one in that's like not of the highest importance.
So that's the problem sometimes with the list. Is
The list?
the watch list.
Oh, okay.
And being a list person.
Right.
It's like, do I watch Amazing Spider-Man 2? Or do I watch a 1960 Akira Kurosawa movie that'll, is considered one of the best so-and-sos and will check off all these other lists I'm keeping track of? So there's a bit of the, I guess what's the value of it?
The time
value
investment.
Well, no, like the value outside of the time, but of the, like, what else am I getting out of this? Am I seeing one of the best movies? Am I checking off lists, or am I just seeing a movie for the sake of seeing a movie?
God, that sounds so exhausting to have to think about all those things every time you pop in a movie.
It is, and it's a bit of a problem / curse that, like, sometimes I need to remind myself I need to watch a movie for the sake of just watching a movie.
Like Amazing Spider-Man 2 will not be your favorite Spider-Man movie.
What's my number 10?
It's going to, I mean, even after having actually seen it, it will not.
Okay.
It might not be your least favorite. It has interesting moments in it. It'll put some of the No Way Home stuff in even better context than it probably already was.
I read the Wikipedia highlights, so I kind of get what I was getting at. Yeah.
And you'll have a good time watching it, even if it's not great. And that's just because Andrew Garfield's charming.
Yeah.
And Emma Stone is probably better than Mary Jane in any of the first 3 movies, as far as a love interest goes. And I think her sacrifice happens in the second movie. So you haven't even witnessed that yet.
I know the comic book.
It's not the same in that movie as in the comic book. But I mean, it's not vastly different, but anyway, just do it, man. I mean, it's right there. Anyway.
Okay.
That's a Georgia movie.
This is Georgia. We're going to watch Puss in Boots and
all these movies
Spider-Man
that all
2.
of us are refusing to watch. We're going to watch them all.
What does Zach refuse to watch that we need to just sit down and watch with him?
I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. So top 10 Spider-Man movies. Since I have 10, I'll start with my number 10.
Okay.
Which just so happens to be Amazing Spider-Man 2.
That's my number 10.
Well, I mean, that's a bingo, I guess. Technically. Even though you haven't seen it, I'm not sure that counts. But
I had to rank them, and I gave this movie 0 stars.
Well, now I'm curious if the rest of our list is exactly the same.
I think it's going to be it will not be exactly the same.
How do you know?
I just know.
Because I value Spider-Man 3 more than you do?
there's two reasons. One of them is you value Spider-Man 3 more than I do. Two is I think you like Across the Spider-Verse more than I do. So I think you're going to put Across the Spider-Verse over Into the Spider-Verse.
Interesting.
I do wonder if we'll be very close, though. There might be a lot of bingos or a lot of missed bingos in this one.
Just barely missed, yeah.
Yes. We're also ranking the same 10 movies, so the chance that there'll be a lot of bingos is fair, too.
Sure. But I've never done a list where it was exactly the same all 10.
Yeah.
I'm still
It's not
waiting
going to be
for that
exactly
day.
the same.
Still waiting for that day. That means we're on to number 9.
Number 9.
Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Okay. Yep. See, we're already not happening.
We're way off.
We're not way off, but we're off.
This is the first Tom Holland MCU movie, which is a perfectly
Second
fine.
Tom Holland MCU
Second,
movie.
sorry. Perfectly fine Spider-Man movie, but not a good Spider-Man movie, in my opinion, mostly because the villain really blows. Like Mysterio. I mean, I don't know what a better version of Mysterio would have been because it was pretty much the Mysterio character. This movie didn't have much for me to chew on. That's why it's my number 9.
All right. My number 9 is Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi one.
Okay.
One of my resolutions that you gave me was to rewatch this movie, which I did. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year. This movie is not as bad as I remember. So I think some of the most parodied moments in this movie, like emo Spider-Man doing whatever, pointy fingers, is not as bad as people remember. It's even not as bad as like they're shown in Into the Spider-Verse kind of makes fun of it. I do find this to be a messy movie, though, mostly because there is the too many villains, which I agree with. I think is a fair assessment. For me, Venom doesn't work in this movie. He kind of like just pops it at the end. And this movie is most interesting when it's going over the James Franco. So he plays Harry Osborn, correct? Yeah. The Harry Osborn, Peter Parker relationship is the most interesting part of this movie.
The Hobgoblin stuff.
Exactly. And when it focuses on them, I was totally into this movie. And even the Sandman stuff was fine. But once we kind of got into Venom and everything else going on, even
and they have Rhino at the beginning of the movie too.
I've watched this. I totally forgot about that part already.
Right.
So, yeah. So this movie just has too much, and there is a good movie in Spider-Man 3, but we don't get it.
Agreed.
You also get a Hobgoblin on a essentially not a surfboard, a snowboard, which was ridiculous.
It was.
It's
They
like an
should have
X
just
Games
given him
thing.
the normal glider.
No, he had to be on a snowboard.
My number 8 is Spider-Man: Homecoming from 2017. Okay. This is the first Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man, and it was fine. I don't relate to Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, I like Andrew Garfield and the other guy. I want to say Ewan McGregor, but that's wrong.
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire.
Okay.
Maguire.
Ewan McGregor could have played Spider. He was of the. I'm sure he and Tobey Maguire are the same age.
Yeah. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, like the way they play it to me seems closer to what my vision of Spider-Man is. But I don't dislike Tom Holland. I mean, how can you? He's perfectly charming British guy. And that movie was fine. And that's why it's my number 8.
My number 8 is Spider-Man: Far From Home. I just find this movie completely forgettable.
Yep.
It's kind of in the middle there, right? Mysterio is trying to go for like this fake news. He's trying to be a topical bad guy. And Jake Gyllenhaal is fine as Mysterio. But
that movie is like 2 hours of setup.
Yes.
For, spoiler alert, everybody to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah, correct.
And then they reverse it in the next movie.
Yeah. It's forgettable. The only reason it's above Spider-Man 3 is because I have strong opinions on the quality of Spider-Man 3. Far From Home, I have really no opinions on at all.
Cool. My number 7 is Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
Which a lot of the things that people don't like about it, short of the fact that the villains there's way too many and Venom is bad in it. This movie has everything I like about those original Spider-Man movies.
You like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
I like Sam Raimi. I like the Sam Raimi touches. I think it's clear to me in the lead up to the release of the movie, there were rumor after rumor about him fighting with Sony about what's going to be in this movie. And it's clear when you watch it that Venom was not in the original plan.
No.
And they shoehorned him into the movie, and the whole thing suffers for it. But luckily there's still some Sam Raimi weirdness in it, and that's what I attach myself to, and that's why it's not at the bottom of my list, but rather number 7.
My number 7 is The Amazing Spider-Man. This movie I avoided for a long time because it just felt like unnecessary, because we just had like less than a decade before we were wrapping up the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, and then we made a new one with Andrew Garfield, and there was talks. Obviously, there's a story about the license, and they had to make one. I did watch this one before we did our No Way Home episode, and it's okay. Like I kind of like Andrew Garfield's take on Peter Parker. My biggest issue with this is it's just another origin story, and it doesn't really do much different than the standard origin story.
That's why you'll like Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like more. Because
you think I like him more than Amazing Spider-Man?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So,
I don't know if you'll like it more, but at least it's telling a different story.
Okay, that's good. That's a good
than
point.
Origin. You know what I mean? It's the second movie, so they're telling a different story other than the
Right.
origin. But it's the basic Spider-Man story. Somebody gets captured, and then he's got to go save them, and it's a sacrifice, and a blah 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 blah.
And you can't save them all.
Right.
Right. Yeah, we got it.
That's what all these stories are, basically. All right, number 6. Also, The Amazing Spider-Man. The first Andrew Garfield movie, which I don't really like that movie, but I really like Andrew Garfield in that movie.
Okay.
And that's what floats it every time I think about it. My number 6.
My number 6 is Homecoming, the first Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like I said, Tom Holland, closer to a teenager, the character of Peter Parker, than even Andrew Garfield was. And I really like Vulture in this movie. I think it's one of the stronger bad guys. Both obviously played by Michael Keaton, who's a great actor, but then just the motivation behind Vulture is great. And then there's that great scene in the car between the two of them, which people talk about a lot.
It's good. My number 5 is Spider-Man : No Way Home.
My number 5 is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best of the Tom Holland ones. And in my opinion, by far, it's the best. It's helped by the fact that the Spider-Men from the other ones are in this one too.
Right.
And that they, I think, hit like a perfect multiverse balance. It's interesting that Spider-Man's the only one that's really been able to do these multiverse movies in the comic book realm. I mean,
right.
Short of Everything Everywhere All at Once. You know what I mean? The multiverse movies in these comic book movies have belonged to Spider-Man, in my opinion.
I think it's because, and we talked about this a little bit in Across the Spidey-Verse, it's that shared trauma that defines Spider-Man.
Sure. I also think these have like zoned, other multiverse movies have tried to involve all these other characters.
Right.
And here they're like, no, it's just Spider-Man. We're just going to share the Spider-Man.
Exactly. Yep. And show. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like they showed like 3 Dr. Octopuses in No Way Home. They were like, no, we'll just pick one. We got multiple Spider-Mans. We don't need multiple villains.
We can pick different villains from their own universes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. For sure. No Way Home is my favorite of the MCU run of Spider-Man movies. I like seeing all 3 of them together on screen together, and how they interacted was a lot of fun. And I'm pretty sure, James, you and I are going to have the same top 5 and the same bottom 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm more than sure. You think they'll be in the same order?
No. I'm
Right.
just saying like
Same
we
movies.
put the same movies in the bottom 5 or we put the same movies in the top 5. So like you and I
We just
share,
shuffled the orders.
right, but I think we definitely agree on the overall quality of these 10 movies where we can put them into a top tier and a bottom tier.
Yep. That makes my number 4 Spider-Man from 2002.
My
Movie
number
that-
4 is Spider-Man from 2002.
Movie that started it all.
Yeah.
I also really like this one because it like the shots of Green Goblin like maniacally laughing in the face of Aunt May as she like sits on the ground next to her bed. He's like kidnapping her. I was just like, we might as well be out in the woods with Ash right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this is totally Sam Raimi. And then the final scene where they're battling in the dilapidated warehouse building and Green Goblin and Spider-Man are fighting and Green Goblin's like pushing him through brick walls and things like
Yes.
that. And he's got like half of the mask ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
That visual to this day, in my opinion, short of the animated movies, is like the best live action visual of any of these Spider-Man movies. And it happened in the first one.
Right.
Even Sam Raimi himself couldn't match that, in my opinion. But yeah, love that movie.
I really like Willem Dafoe.
Mhm.
When he has Norman talking to the Green Goblin, and
Yeah.
sometimes he's talking to the mirror, and it kind of cuts like he will change between Norman and Green Goblin, and sometimes he's talking to the mask, and the mask is
Right.
talking back to him. And I do like that the other movies 2 and 3 also have the mask talking, even though Norman is no longer in the movies.
Right.
How like he becomes his spirit becomes the mask and haunts people.
Right. If not literally.
No,
You know.
in
The
movie
idea of the
terms.
mask drives people mad.
Exactly.
way.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
He's not his spirit's not literally in the mask, but
I understand.
you know what I'm saying. Okay.
I'm guessing your number 3 is Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that your number 3? Okay.
That's my number 3 is Spider-Man
Okay.
2. I mean, this is the best live action version of Spider-Man, I would
It
say.
is. It is. Yeah.
It's a classic Spider-Man story, classically told with Sam Raimi twists. And I'm not sure any live action Spider-Man movie can touch it, just because that combination was perfect for me in that moment.
Have we had a comic book movie where our hero loses their mojo?
Where literally they lose their power just because
Yeah.
they.
Because that's what's
No.
happening in this one. Like he's losing his powers.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm
No.
trying to think of another movie. Did MCU do that one with one where someone couldn't use their power? I'm trying to think if like Thor couldn't do something, or I guess
There was
they
a
kinda did
movie
with
where
the Hulk.
Thor got overweight and
Yeah,
you
but he
know.
didn't lose his power. Like he lost his
he left his will to
his
be
will.
Thor. Yeah.
I guess they did that with the Hulk, right? In one of those movies, he couldn't turn into the Hulk. Is either Endgame or Infinity War? I think it was Infinity War.
He couldn't turn into the Hulk, or he couldn't turn out of being the Hulk.
I thought he couldn't turn into the Hulk. Like that was kind of the gag throughout Infinity War. Is
And then at the beginning of Endgame, hadn't he like permanently turned into the Hulk?
he became like a Hulk Bruce Banner hybrid.
Right.
Yes, that's
Where
but-
he could remain Hulk, but also be a sensible person.
correct. But
Yeah.
that was played for comedy in Infinity War of him like,
Right. But that actually happened in the comics.
oh no, I'm sure it did. But I'm just
Right.
saying like that wasn't the central story of Infinity War. Was the
Mhm.
Hulk can't be the Hulk? It was just more like wouldn't it be
He
funny
showed up.
also if Bruce right.
Yeah.
Whereas Spider-Man 2, a big part of the story is like Spider-Man can't be Spider-Man. Like he's got the girl, everything should be going his way.
Mhm.
However, he can't,
He's impotent.
he's it right. Yeah, there's definitely an impotence story to this. You also get Doc Ock, who's a great bad guy in this.
Oh, yeah.
And that his creation scene where he's in the lab and his tentacles come to life. That's straight horror.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
blood
In
there, but-
shadow, they're showing his tentacles like ripping the arms off of the medical people.
Yeah, and like people are getting like dragged like away from camera into the shadows. It's a great scene.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I agree. My number 2, and this is where we might diverge.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man : Into the Spider-Verse.
And mine is Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay, so we're gonna flip-flop 1 and
Yep.
2. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we just talked about it.
Right.
These movies are both 5-star movies for me. They're very similar. On a different day, maybe they would have flip-flopped. Although I think Across will remain my favorite just because they slowed it down.
Mhm.
They slowed the tempo just enough for me to like not get that feeling of like when I left the first one, the first time I saw it, I thought this is made for people with really short attention spans.
Yeah.
Because it was constant. And I didn't get that feeling with the second one. And so that's probably the biggest reason why I would say it's above Into for me. But why do you put Into above Across?
I think for part of it is the novelty.
Mhm.
Just to see something completely
It was
new.
the first time you experienced that. Yeah.
Exactly. And part of it is the new take on the origin story.
Mhm.
Where you gave me the origin story, but it's not the exact same origin story that I've seen 3 times now.
Mhm.
Now, to Across the Spider-Verse's credit, it's giving me the story of what does Spider-Man do now that he's Spider-Man, and it's doing a new twist on it. So like it's keeping it going, and that's what I'm so impressed by this movie, that it can keep the momentum that was established in the first one. And I totally get why you put Across over Into, and I'm not going to argue that you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I really think it comes down to those small personal things, and for you, it's your old man pacing, and for me, it's
That's part of it. I also think Across is given more time to deepen relationships.
yes, yep,
And I mean, without Into, Across wouldn't have that.
Right.
That luxury. But I mean, there's a reason why I like Empire over the original Star Wars.
There's-
Because everything cool that happens in Empire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you would have never gotten there without Star Wars. So
right, it's
I
same
think
for
that's like the relationship between Gwen when they're hanging out under the bell tower, podium and stuff like that. Like that would not have worked the same way in part 1 as it does in part 2 because of the groundwork that's laid in part 1. So
correct. Yep.
cool. Well, that was our top 10 Spider-Man movies. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you disagree, let us know. If I had to put the Venom movie that I've seen, which is the first Venom movie in this list, it would be very solidly at number 11.
Really?
Yeah, it's rare that I skip a comic book movie, and I have not seen Venom 2.
I want to see Venom 2. It's not anywhere out there. Like, it's not streaming. It's
Really?
I can't find it. None of the major streamers have it.
Huh. I bet it came and went. I guaranteed it was on one of those services.
I don't know. I get alerts for some of these, and I haven't seen them pop up yet.
No
I
way.
I would put Venom. Where'd I put Venom? I might put Venom above Far From Home. I might slot it in my number 8. I really like how Venom is presented in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the relationship between Venom and Eddie Brock. I don't care for the fact that they pretty much made Venom a hero.
Right.
But like they just gave him a worse symbiote to fight against to make him the default hero.
Mm-hmm.
And that was weird. And Venom is a villain.
Yeah, I mean,
But
they gave him. He had his own comics, and
Yeah.
there's a basis for what they're doing in that movie. But it, I don't know. I know in a world where Joker exists, you could make interesting stories about villains in like single play movies, but Venom just wasn't it.
That's fine. And
you know what I mean?
definitely
It was
became-
like it did nothing for me.
And it became a CG fest at the end of like, let's just have tentacle
Right.
monsters fighting each other on a spaceship or whatever. I mean, like Venom has its flaws, but I
Mhm.
still enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it, and maybe Let There Be Carnage will have some of the same fun, but I haven't seen it and can never find it anywhere. So,
It's crazy to me too that like Michelle Williams is in these movies.
I totally forgot she's in those movies.
So like Tom Hardy and Michelle Williams, that's like that cast is insanely overqualified for the task at hand, I would say.
They're trying to get some of that comic book money. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is in Venom, Michelle Williams' character pops up in like every scene. Like Eddie
Mhm.
Brock is having a crisis, like in the woods. And then
Mhm.
Michelle Williams, like out of nowhere, she's like, "What's going on, Eddie?" I'm like, "He's in the woods. Like, how would you why are you here right now?"
Yep. Yeah. I don't know how they got that cast in these movies, but they did.
Residuals.
I don't get it.
That's how
Yeah.
they got him in the movies.
Could be. So you never saw the second one?
Like I said, I can't find it streaming anywhere. Have you found it where it's streaming?
No.
No. There you go.
I mean, there's lots of places that have it, but you'd have to pay for
I'm not going to pay a cent for Let There Be Carnage.
it. Okay. Fair enough. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score on Let There Be Carnage is?
I'm going to say it's a 53.
You say 53. Why can't I find this?
Because it doesn't even exist on Rotten
Oh,
Tomatoes.
it's a 57.
Oh, okay.
You're not far off.
Not too far
Actually,
off.
it's actually better than you think it is.
Okay, it's 4% better. Not quite fresh though, but
How much money do you think Let There Be Carnage made at the box office worldwide?
worldwide. Ooh, maybe I'm gonna say it's just south. Maybe 200. Let's say 180. That's probably-
Worldwide.
Okay, never mind. Okay, let's go higher than that. It's worldwide. Let's say let's say 350.
$510 million.
Oh, okay. So it made some money.
It cost 110.
Mm-hmm.
So if in theory you take the budget and double it
Right.
before you're in the red, they're in the red.
In the black, you mean?
In the black, sorry.
Yeah.
AKA Carnage. What I'm bummed about is they still just have not done a good Venom story with Spider-Man in it, because that's like my favorite thing of all time as far as a Spider-Man story. And the one time they attempted it in live action, they botched it.
They botched it for sure. Venom does look cool in Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
I give it that.
Well, they need to do like a whole movie about the symbiote arriving and Spider-Man discovering it, and then Spider-Man using the black costume, and then the black costume like making him a more violent, aggressive person, which they touch on these things
Do
in part
Spider-Man
3.
Yeah.
They just don't do it enough for it to matter when eventually he rejects the symbiote.
Yes.
And the symbiote goes and finds a burly construction worker, which is not how they
Topher
played
Grace.
it in Spider-Man 3.
No.
Goes and finds a construction worker whose wife just was murdered or died or something, like his wife and kids. I don't remember.
I remember, yeah.
But he just had a recent trauma. So the symbiote injects itself into somebody who's vulnerable, and then it becomes like a vengeful alien, basically.
Yes.
And then Spider-Man dons the red suit again. And yeah, it's like a big thing. It should be more than one movie. It should be like he gets a symbiote and everything's great. And then at the end of one movie, he realizes maybe things aren't as great as they feel.
Mhm.
And then in movie 2, you deal with him trying to separate himself from the symbiote.
Yeah, so
but,
like movie 1 could be bad guy of the week.
Yeah.
While he has the symbiote. And then movie 2 is the Venom is the bad guy.
Right. And I don't know how they do that with the current Tom Holland stuff, because
Oh, I don't want to see Tom Holland do that. I want a 4th live action Next time they reboot Spider-Man, which will be in 1 to 7 years.
You think so?
Yeah, I'd be a little facetious.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure Tom Holland. I'm not sure how much more he'll be playing that character. Maybe
You
one
don't
more.
think? I think Marvel, the MCU needs him right now.
Well, and Tom Holland kind of needs the MCU also. Like, what else has he got going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the biggest thing he has going on, but you could say that for everybody that's in these Marvel movies. It's the biggest thing they've got going on.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those actors, maybe because they have careers before this, they can do things beyond Marvel.
You don't think Tom Holland can do things beyond Marvel?
He hasn't yet.
Right, but he's like young. He's like 20 or something like that.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, there is everything he's tried to do that's not been Spider-Man has not gone, is either no one has forgotten or has been panned.
Right, but like name
So-
another actor that's in Marvel movies
Okay.
that either one wasn't on the back half of their career, or two made their debut within, you know what I mean?
What about Chris Evans?
Chris Evans was already in
I
a Marvel
understand that.
franchise and it went bad.
And no one remembers that he was in Human Torch until the internet reminded us that he was in Human Torch. When
That's
Chris
what I'm
Evans
saying. Like he was dead in the water
I know.
when
So
they cast
like,
him as Captain America.
but okay. But he was able to then take his Marvel success as Captain America, and now he is in other things. Like he was doing Knives Out, and I can't think what else he's been doing.
He's in other things, but he's not the star of other things.
I don't think he wants to be the star or needs to be the star.
Right. That's
Yeah.
how you act when you're on the back half of your career.
I mean, he's on the back half of his career. I think
Absolutely, he's on the back half. He's not in the first half. The first half was a Fantastic Four and the Scorecard, all those teen comedies. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He was in a ton of
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
He had some level of success. He was pretty much dead in the water when they cast him as Captain America. He was not in anything for like 5 years before Captain America. And then it revived him. And ever since then, he's kind of been coasting off the good zhuzh that being Captain America got him.
What,
You know what I mean?
what about Zendaya? I know she's on the
Zendaya is
ma-
another Tom Holland.
No,
that
she's got
came
stuff
out-
going on outside of
What? Euphoria? Come on. Who
Dune.
cares? Dune? Yeah.
I mean-
she's in Dune for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, but she's gonna be a major part of Dune too.
That remains to be seen whether Dune 2 will do anything for her career.
Okay.
It's not out yet. I like Zendaya,
Yeah.
but I don't know of her other than being in the Spider-Man movie. I mean, I know of her because I've heard of things. I
Right.
never watched Euphoria, but and wasn't she on the Disney Channel before that or something?
I don't want
remember.
that. Good question.
I'm just saying, like, what's his name? The Doctor Strange.
Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch. By far, Doctor Strange is the best thing he's got going. Biggest thing he's got going. Maybe not
Right.
best. Biggest
Yes.
thing he's got going. What does he do after Doctor Strange?
He
He goes back to being like the third guy in World War II movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what he was doing before Doctor Strange. That's what he's going to be doing after.
No,
he won't be the lead of his $100 million movie.
He was doing Sherlock and Imitation Game before he was
A
Doctor Strange.
BBC TV show is not
I-
on the same level as a Doctor Strange movie.
A huge BBC TV show. Like the non-BBC, the BBC TV show that Americans most likely watched was Sherlock.
I get that, and I like that show, but I don't see it after Doctor Strange.
Okay.
He's not going to be Jason Bourne. He's not going to be Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. You know what I mean? Like none of
Mhm.
these people in these Marvel movies are going on to be the main guy in their own series.
What about Hemsworth? Do you think he has more career ahead of him? I know he's got Extraction, which is
I hope he does because I feel
okay.
like Hemsworth has the best chance of pulling it off.
Yeah.
But I think Extraction will probably be as big as it goes for him. As far as like he's clearly the lead of this series.
Mhm.
And Extraction's big, but
Yeah.
not like pop culture penetrating, you know what I mean?
it's
type
Netflix big.
It's Netflix big, yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
I hear what you're saying.
It's can you stay on the charts for a month big.
Right. How long are you number one most watched or on that top 10 list?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get you.
Which is very different than other types of big. Thor big.
Yeah.
For sure. Can't wait for that movie though. I'm into it.
I'm looking forward to Extraction too. Yeah.
I can't wait for some fake oneers.
Hey, as long as it moves the story forward, I'm fine with it.
Sure. All right. This is a lot of post episode chat for sure.
It is. This is what happens when you and I are on the show together. We just
I
kind of
know.
go on these tangential conversations.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode 586 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, find us on YouTube, subscribe there, support us on Patreon, get extra after show audio. You could, what else was there? You could leave us an email, heyguys@cinereelists.com, or leave us a Apple Podcast review. We'd appreciate that. 5 stars only. Or you could follow us on social media at TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
Next week, we don't know exactly what we're going to do, but there's a chance we might be crossing over with another podcast and playing some movie games, which I think will be fun. If that works out, I think we should do that with like a couple other podcasts too. Like invite them to just come on and play movie games with us.
That'd be
I think
fun.
that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometime in June, there'll be an episode where we will have another podcast on play movie games. Could be next week. Could be later.
Could be the week after or the week after that.
Just watch that feed, hit refresh every day.
Yep.
Until you see it.
Yes. Do all those things. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.